What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the debut album by Trillville. Basically, this project is called The King of Crunk and BME Recordings present Welcome to Trillville, USA, and this album came out in the winter of 2004. So the thing about this particular project is this was a double album, or basically like a double EP. One half was the Little Scrappy Side, which I reviewed back in November. That's a pretty classic album. I'd have to say in particular, that project definitely had some hit singles and songs on it, just in particular, I'd have to say. And then this particular project was the Trillville. And then Trillville was the other particular side of the album as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. But this is another hit album here, I'd have to say. Maybe not as full blown as classic as like the Little Scrappy Side, but it's definitely a pretty damn well quality project here, I'd have to say. There's definitely some quality stuff on here. There's definitely some hit songs on here, I'd have to say in particular. It's a pretty fleshed out album, just in particular, I'd have to say. But the concept about this is kind of the shorter project. The Little Scrappy album has 7 songs on there. The Little Scrappy album has 7 songs. The Trillville album only has 6. So that's kind of the particular concept. But there are at least 3 singles. So the thing about this particular project is just the fact that each of the Little Scrappy and Trillville albums had 3 singles towards them. So Little Scrappy had songs like No Problem, Head Bussa, and some of those type ones. And there was another one off there that I don't remember, which was like, oh yeah, Forever, Fila, Forever, I Love Atlanta. But this particular one has 3 singles, which would be Never Ever, Get Some Crunk in Your System, and Some Cut, all of which were pretty hit singles. Now, the Trillville side of things was a lot more commercial. The Trillville side of things was a lot more commercial as far as that pitch kind of went along with it. Definitely songs like Never Ever and Some Cut were particularly some large ones. Some Cut was a huge song in like the winter of 2005 and throughout 2004, I'd say. Definitely had some lastability and overall replayability. Some Cut had some high replay value that lasted for a good while as far as that pitch can have, but this is a pretty particular type one. This is a pretty particular type one. And the thing about this particular project is just the fact that it had a lot of standard and generic kind of crunk energy. I'd have to say Little Scrappy was a little bit more realized, I'd have to say in particular. Not to say that this is the worst album, it's just kind of the concept that these are both pretty excellent and damn near classic projects. I would feel like the Little Scrappy one's more of a classic, but this one definitely going to get over an 8.5 out of 10. I'd have to say this in particular. It's just got some quality stuff on here. It's just kind of the concept that some of these album cuts, because there's only really 6 songs, it's a real small EP's worth of songs. It really kind of comes off as like the concept when you just don't. I mean, it's not to say that this is bad. It's just kind of the concept that some of these extra album cuts are just more generic crunk as far as that pitch kind of has with it. Which, if you like generic crunk, if you like vanilla kind of stock, kind of factory, kind of club type songs, it works pretty heavily, I'd have to say. But it's just kind of the concept that the singles are some of the best moments, obviously, just within the pitch. Now, obviously, that's usually what you would think most folks would kind of say, but it's just kind of the concept with this particular one. I just feel like they needed to flesh out a little bit more with like the album cuts as far as that pitch can goes, apart from just like the rowdy kind of get on the Trillville needed to establish more points apart from the rowdy stand on the couch type rumblers as far as that pitch has. But it's not like this is a horrid project. So it's just kind of the concept. But yeah, there were 3 singles on here. The first single was Never Ever. Basically, just to talk about that. I mean, this is going to be kind of a snappy type review just because it's so brief as far as that pitch can goes, but it does have some quality on here, like I was saying, some thrills just to be able to have. So Never Ever is basically like a stellar, Never Ever is basically like a stellar kind of basic 2000s crunk club. Never Ever is basically like a stellar kind of basic 2000s crunk club hitter, I'd have to say in particular. This is definitely like a get tore up energy of a song, I'd have to say in particular. Just a nice one for that. And this is just like a good entry Kickstarter for like a crazy night, I'd have to say in particular. So it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get this one. Basic kind of bop here, just reminds me of 36 Mafia, Lil Jon, some of those type pitches. It's a real vanilla type one to kind of have in particular. It's real commercial and ready to go as far as that particularly kind of goes. If you're looking just for like some entry kind of crunk noise, just if you like crunk but you want something a little bit more commercial and just ready to go in terms of like radio appeal and stuff like that, just more MTV, VH1 type stuff, this would be a good bop to kind of get here as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. I mean, they do kind of say, I mean, the chant when they're like, get on my level, ho, they say that a lot and like throughout the verses as far as that particular kind of happens with it. So if that gets tiresome, you may not like this song so much, but they do have some other hits on here. Like I feel like Get Some Crunk in Your Systems, pretty much that's the better song out of the 2 of them, but Never Ever is just a little bit more commercial and just radio ready as far as that kind of particularly kind of goes. But basically, Get Some Crunk in Your Systems, the second single. This has Pastor Troy on there. That's a pretty good one just within that pitch. This one's like a leaner, more gnarled crunk boiler, I'd have to say in particular. This song would definitely be like the older brother of Never Ever, I'd have to say in particular. This song would definitely be like the older brother of Never Ever, I'd have to say in particular. And this song just has some real fierce bite about it. So I'd have to say about this particular one, it's just a real lean type song. Definitely like the mean appeal. This particular one just has a real gnarled type energy and its overall nastiness. It just has a lot of good crunk appeal just within that relative pitch. This is a boiler. This is pretty much like the highest turn up song on the album, I'd have to say in particular, especially in terms of the singles. This one's more of like a hardcore rap type single. Definitely like the older brother, like I was saying, that Never Ever just works within that pitch. This one's a little bit less commercial, but just has the concept of having a little bit more bite and just a little bit more feralness towards it that works pretty damn well. So I definitely feel like Trillville was able to get some of these get fucked up Trillville was definitely able to get some of these get fucked up type songs with finesse as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. I feel like songs like on the little scrappy side, like Headbust are like this, but I feel like these two Trillville songs just really have some of that gnarled type energy that works pretty heavily. I'd have to say this one didn't quite chart as heavily, but it's probably the better song out of the two singles of these first two. I'd have to say. I think this one edges out Never Ever. I'd have to say, despite the fact it's not as commercial. Some Cuts, the third single. This is definitely the highest charting song off the album. I'd have to say, out of the three singles, this was the most popular. This one has the most plays on Spotify as far as that pitch gun goes. It's a real classic type 2000s tune. It's like a classic hood love anthem. I'd have to say in particular, just some real good Cuddy type music as far as that pitch kind of particularly goes along with it. This continues to be a standout 2000s hit. I'd have to say in particular, even 20 years later, this is still a highlight. This song has a great hook. I would definitely have to say real affable type one sing song and one that really hits heavily. And the commercial appeal on this song, and I would have to say the commercial appeal of this song is pretty high in particular. I'd have to say so. Some good concepts kind of get this one. This real affable type one. This is like a different variation of Crunk as far as that pitch kind of goes. Just a more ladies type vibe as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Definitely needed more songs like this. It's a real classic type one. It's too bad that we didn't get more songs like this because this is definitely a standout type song. This had some real good pitches as far as that particular kind of went along with it. This was just kind of like this almost made Trillville like a one-hit wonder. Now, Never Ever did chart, but this one was like the clear highlight. This is one that lasted for like a good while. And this is kind of one that Lil Jon, like back when everyone was fucking with Lil Jon back in 2004, 2005, and then this song just kind of vanished and then people just forgot about Trillville. But it's just kind of the concept that they definitely needed another song like this. This is just a real highlight type one, but kind of almost labels them in like one hit wonder territory, but they do have some other hits. I'd have to say they teamed up with 3 6 Mafia. They did a song with 3 6 Mafia 2005, some pitches like that. They had some other hits, singles throughout the 2000s I'm gonna have to get to, but there's definitely some other hits. But this is just a real nice one. I'd have to say definitely shining song to kind of fuck with if you need some starting points for Trillville. I'd have to say it's a nice one. But so basically, out of the 6 songs on this particular EP, basically I wound up recommending to you 5. So the only real song I don't recommend off this whole project is just The Hood, which is just a poor type one. The Hood just felt like a Crunk Traverse type song, just vehicle bound type stuff that just didn't really pull off the interesting type vibe of really doing it. Just really was not that compelling or real affable of one to really have much of management towards. I just would have to say. I feel like Trillville definitely had some gnarled club cuts on here in particular, but I just feel like they needed to flesh out some other. I definitely feel like they needed to flesh out some other type vibes to kind of get on here. This was really like the only dud. I mean, it's just a short amount of songs on here. I'm surprised that they didn't have like a 7th song or something like that, but they just had more skits. But the Hood was just not very. The Hood just didn't really nail it in energy for me. But to talk about the other 2 songs on here, which would be Weakest Link and Bitch Niggas, both to talk about the other 2 songs on here, which would be Weakest Link and Bitch Niggas. Basically, to talk about these, like Weakest Link is like a typical kind of crunk noise for like a rowdy night. I'd have to say in particular. Weakest Link is like a typical kind of crunk noise for like a rowdy night. I'd have to say in particular. This one goes well with like some crunker singles, like Never Ever Get Some Crunk in Your System. I'd have to say, but it's kind of factory in like its appeal. I'd have to suppose this one kind of has like a gnarled beat. This one can. I feel like Weakest Link can compete with Get Some Crunk in Your System in terms of the ferociousness and the overall bite of it, but this is more stock and factory in terms of like the overall appeal and just overall execution of the song. I feel like it's just kind of more of like a 7.5 in terms of like overall quality and just overall addictiveness. In terms of overall quality, in terms of overall addictiveness, I'd have to say about that particular one. But it is a good song. It's just kind of the concept. It has a great production on there, definitely pretty thrilling, but it's just kind of the concept of just the overall quality that just has the overall quality that just kind of has the widespread kind of appeal. It's just more substandard, I'd have to say, but it is a nice one enough to recommend. And then Bitch Nigga is kind of the same concept about that one. This is like a more stock kind of crunk rowdiness, I'd have to say, for some crazy nights, definitely. It's like a vanilla kind of night venue. This song is like some vanilla kind of night venue energy, I'd have to say, and it's pretty interchangeable with the rest of the album in terms of the crunk hits, I'd have to suppose. So it's just kind of the concept, but basically it just felt like Trillville were just kind of scraping the barrel in terms of like ideas and just overall concepts as far as trying to have some of these pitches. They definitely had the rowdiness figured out as far as like get you rowdy, get you excited pitches. In terms of like get you rowdy, get you excited, get you stuff like that, just get you exhilarated, some of those type pitches. But in terms of the concept of the ideas, that just the ways of conveying that and the means of conveying that, it just wasn't quite as executed as well, I'd have to say. But I still look, I mean, these are good songs, so they're just kind of stock and basic in terms of that relative pitch. They're just more generic as far as that pitch can goes along with it. I feel like Lil Scrappy just handled those particular vibes a little bit better as this kind of thing. But in terms of what I'm going to score this EP or album, I just would have to say me recommending 5 songs out of 6 picks on this particular EP. I'm going to go ahead and give this EP like a 9 out of 10, I would have to say. Another reason why I didn't give it like a higher score, I realized that 5 out of 6 is only disliking one song, which would damn near basically be like a 10 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 9 just because I didn't really enjoy Dookie Love that much either. That one was just kind of an intro type song. Just that one was just another kind of hood cutty type song, kind of similar to Some Cut, but it just didn't really pull off the vibes that well. It wasn't really much of a song, just kind of an interlude slash mini kind of skit type song that just kind of had some degree of humor towards it, but this was kind of somewhat subpar as far as that pitch kind of went along with it. It was just kind of here and there. It's just kind of the concept about it. Just I mean, it works for like a typical kind of lackadaisical type vibe, but in terms of like the pitch as to how affable it kind of be in terms of its addictiveness, it was just kind of more subpar. I'd say it was just kind of the concept about it, but it's still, I mean, a 9 out of 10 is pretty damn well. A 9 out of 10 is pretty damn effective, I'd have to say. I do feel like the little scrappy side edges out this side a little bit more, but I'd have to say I do feel like the little scrappy side edges out this particular album by a bit, but I still would have to say a 9 out of 10 is pretty damn good. I gave the little scrappy side a 10 out of 10. This one gets a 9. It's the same kind of basic concept, damn near, I would have to say. So that's just a particular pitch about it. But the social score, I'm going to go ahead and give like an 8.5 out of 10. I do feel like these 3 singles have some pretty good quality about them. I'd have to say definitely never ever get some crunk in your system or some classic. Definitely never ever get some crunk in your system or some classic crunk type tunes to kind of have for like some commercial and factory type sense. They just work pretty heavily for like some. They just work pretty heavily for like some of that edginess. I'd have to say in particular. And then I would also have to say that Some Cut is like a classic ladies type song for like 2000s crunk as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it. It's a real 2000s highlight that continues to have a lot of standout energy and just overall appeal. And then there's just some kind of factory generic type crunk songs on here that also bolster up the energy pretty well. I'd say this works for that particular edge, but it's just kind of the concept that they're a little bit factored just within the pitch. But that's about the only real reason why it gets an 8.5. I mean, these songs are pretty quality. They definitely are like good for some outings as far as that pitch kind of goes, but it's just kind of more, just kind of happens to be a little bit more generic and just kind of more, just happens to be a little bit more generic and run of the mill as far as the typical kind of craziness. Now, back in 2004, there was still some Liddy type stuff, and it works for like a relative sense. I mean, hearing these songs, I'd rather hear them than not hear them. It's just kind of the concept that there are some more gnarled and crazier and worse crunk songs I would definitely feel like, and worse, I mean, by worse, I mean a lot better just within that pitch. There's a lot more, just more ferocious and biting type crunk songs to kind of get just within that aspect. You know, Lil Jon's Crunk Rock, Crunk Juice, some of those type ones. Lil Jon has a lot of crazier songs. Lil Scrappy does as well. There's just a whole bunch more. It's not to say that these are bad songs. It's kind of the concept that it's just the energy behind it is just more kind of run of the mill. I feel like within that relative pitch, just kind of the pitch behind it. But they are good. So 8.5 is just the pitch behind it. Just understand that it's vanilla. That's just the main pitch I'm trying to get towards you. Is just the fact that it's more vanilla, more so than feral, as far as that kind of goes. But so in terms of the future, like Trillville has dropped a number of projects. I definitely want to get to some more Trillville as time goes along. As far as that particular pitch kind of happens. I mean, apparently there might be a Trillville Reloaded that came out in 2005 that has some charting singles on there from back in those days when they were originally going to drop an album back in 2005, 2006. I want to see about that. See if there was a Trillville Reloaded. I know that they at least dropped an album in 2008 that I want to get to. Definitely some pitches like that. So we'll have to get to some more of these. But this is pretty damn near a classic. I'd have to say definitely a real excellent debut. Has a lot of good energy. It may be vanilla in some cases, but I still feel like it's pretty thrilling, I'd have to say overall.